I appreciate thank you again for the invitation to come and share some time with you. I'm, you know, again, I'm just really grateful to you for inviting me to come and talk to you virtually on Zoom. And I want to send all my good wishes to all of you, because Santa Monica KTC, I've visited many, many times and have enjoyed seeing you sitting in your kitchens and talking and sharing meals with you in the patio and all of the things that we've done. I just want to thank you for all of those opportunities to enjoy California. I'm a girl from Ohio, and we had showers and thunderstorms most of the afternoon because it was pretty hot here. And so thinking about the ocean breeze in Venice, I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of virtually feel that Venice Beach ocean breeze and be part of our program tonight. I was asked to talk on the topic of self-care, and it's actually something I've thought a lot about, because, as you know, we've all been inside now, or trying to socially distance for quite a while because of the pandemic. And for a lot of people, this has been problematic. It's helped them to feel isolated. It's helped them to feel alone rather than to feel connected. I think that things such as Zoom have really helped us to feel a little more connected during this time, but still, we're kind of still on our own. And I've talked to some of my friends in the Dharma, and they've said that they've had to kind of put barriers and fences around their time, because they have a problem when they work from home. During the pandemic, lots of people are working from home, and they're having a hard time differentiating between a home time and work time, and they maybe are working too much, and they're getting too tired, and they're getting a little frazzled, and they're getting more impatient with their loved ones, and all kinds of things are happening because of the isolation of being in socially distant situations. It's going to be like this for some months yet. And so for people like me, it's somewhat difficult, but not as difficult as it might be if we didn't have the technology of being able to talk to people via the internet. That's made it very, very doable for me. Because being in a 3-year retreat, even though I was in a group of people, I was in retreat with a group of women, and there were about 9 of us in retreat. We still had our own rooms, and we had the opportunity to spend some alone time every day. So I think that in the current situation, trying to take care of ourselves is a little bit challenging. We have to remember to socially distance, and when we go outdoors, we have to wear our masks, and we have to deal with traffic still, and we have to deal with people and difficult things, and it's hard sometimes to take care of ourselves. And so I thought that I would, in talking about self-care, I would talk about two things. I would talk about the first of the 4 thoughts that turn the mind toward the Dharma. You know, the teachings of the Buddha have been around for 2,500 years. And Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, the Lama who founded our centers, once said, just as water has continued to quench thirst through the ages, so Dharma, the truth of the Dharma, has continued to help human beings throughout the ages. So even though the Dharma of the Buddha is 2,500 years old, it still has applicability to our everyday life, because the teachings of the Buddha are about being human, about what it is to be human, what it is to experience human life and the human mind. And so when we think about this life that we have, the Buddha said that that we each of us has a mind, and that mind has the potential to awaken to its own nature. And this is why we call the essence of mind Buddha nature. The essence of our mind it can be called Buddha nature. And so when the Buddha taught about Buddha nature, he said, each of us have the potential to awaken to our Buddha nature. Right now, we don't know that we have Buddha nature. We don't know that we have it. All that we know is that we think a lot, and we feel a lot, and we have a lot of emotions. And because of all this, we're distracted. We're distracted by our thoughts. We're distracted by our feelings. We're distracted by our emotions. We're distracted by the stories we tell ourselves about our lives. And we spend all of this time working with the stories of our lives and not actually being able to become aware of the essence, the innermost essence of who we are. And this is why the Buddha taught meditation as a way to come into contact with and become aware of our deep inner nature that has the potential to awaken to itself and to benefit not just ourselves, but others. So this is I think what I'd like to base my topic today on. I'd like to talk about the preciousness of our life and our Buddha nature. So that's just two topics, the preciousness of life and our Buddha nature. And if you remember the teachings of the Buddha, they have been sometimes divided into three turnings of the wheel of Dharma. It's the Buddha turned the wheel of truth 3 times in India 2,500 years ago. And in the third turning of the wheel of Dharma, he taught Buddha nature. And it is the work of Dharma centers like the Karma Thegsum Chöling in Santa Monica to help people connect to the teachings that will help them uncover their Buddha nature. The so-called 3 yanas, or 3 vehicles that are in the name of our center, Karma Thegsum Chöling. Karma means the center of the Karmapa, the supreme Lama of our tradition. Thegsum means 3 vehicles, or the 3 teachings of those 3 turnings of the wheel, the 3 practices that are related to those 3 turnings of the wheel. And Chöling means Dharma place. So place of the Dharma of the 3 vehicles, or the 3 wheels of the Dharma of the Buddha and the Karmapa. So this is what we do at the Dharma Center at Santa Monica KTC and at all the KTCs. The first turning of the wheel of the Dharma, the Buddha taught ethics, morality, and meditation. Ethics, morality, and meditation. He taught us to not harm ourselves, not to harm others, to take care of ourselves and benefit others, and to tame our mind through the practice of quiet sitting meditation so that we would be able to better tell the difference between benefit for others and harm. And in the second yana, the Mahayana, the Buddha taught the emptiness of all things. And he also taught about the practices of love, compassion, and wisdom. And so in the first turning of the wheel, he taught basic quiet sitting meditation, which is something we teach here at the KTC. We teach everyone who wants to learn how to sit quietly, watch their breath, and meditate. And that's our initial practice for everyone, is quiet sitting meditation. And in the second turning of the wheel practice that we do here, we learn compassion meditation, extending through our imagination, extending love and compassion to others through compassion meditation, imagining that we'd send goodness out to all sentient beings, and imagine that we engender love and compassion for all beings. That's our second practice. The third practice has to do with Buddha nature. It has to do with discovering our Buddha nature through the practice of mantra and visualization, such as the mantra and visualization practice of Chenrezig that you do every day, every week, and every month. So all of us, when we're connected to the KTC, we do some form of Chenrezig practice, whether we do a few mantras at home or whether we do mantras as a group every month, or at our center, we've done it as a weekly practice for a while. So no matter where we do it, when we recite the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, we are meditating on a symbolic representation of our Buddha nature by meditating on the mantra, which is the sound of Dharma. So in this way, the three practices of the Karma Thegsum Chöling, quiet sitting practice, compassion meditation, and mantra meditation, all of these practices help us to tame our mind and to awaken our heart and to help us discover our inner Buddha nature. Now, you might say, well, what does all this have to do with taking good care of ourselves? I was talking to someone earlier this evening about how difficult it is sometimes to do the things we need to do to take care of ourselves. How difficult it is to actually get on our meditation cushion and practice. How difficult it is to be with Dharma people when we really know we need to be with Dharma people, but then we find other reasons not to be with Dharma people, or like we're too busy, or this is happening, or that is happening. Why don't we do the things that are good for us? We end up doing all the things that are not good for us. And I think it's because we forget that we have Buddha nature. And so I like to try to encourage people to remember that they have Buddha nature. And one of the, I use a metaphor. I made this metaphor up. So it is not a sacred Buddhist teaching. It's a metaphor that I made up. And I'll tell you why I made it up. I made it up for a little girl. And I'll tell you the story of how I did that in a minute. But I tell people, think as though your inner Buddha, the Buddha you are to become, think of it as a baby Buddha, that you've been handed this child to raise up so that they can become a Buddha. And that how would you take care of a child that had been given to your care? You know, you'd take care of that child. You'd make sure the child got enough to eat. You'd make sure the child got enough rest. You'd make sure that the child had richness in their relationships and experiences. You would take care of the child to nurture that child. Now, not everybody grows up in a nurturing home. And because of that, we sometimes forget what it's like to be nurtured. We've forgotten, and because we maybe never learned it. But now that we have been given this opportunity, our Buddha nature, we've been given this opportunity, we recognize that we have something precious within us that needs to be nurtured, developed, and brought out. Maybe if we decided to be the older sibling for that baby Buddha, the older sister or older brother we never had, and give ourselves some good advice about how to take care of ourselves. And said, you know, I really think that you need to get some rest, or I really think you need to eat well, or I really think you need to turn off the television, or you need to turn off the news and not take in so much negative information. You need to take good care. You need to get out and see the sun. You need to get out and walk. You need to do things that are balanced and healthy for yourself. And that maybe by thinking that we have a young Buddha within us that needs nurturing, maybe that will help. Now, the reason I made up this metaphor of the baby Buddha was because I was asked a question by a little girl, and the little girl basically said she didn't like herself sometimes. And of course, you know, when you hear that, it kind of makes your heart fall a little bit. Sometimes she doesn't like herself. And so I suggested that she think about her inner goodness as being like a child that she could care for. And that maybe she could be her own big sister sometimes and help her feel encouraged. And she could be her own big sister sometime and take herself out for a walk, or go and play in the yard and do something that she enjoys, or listen to music or sing, or do something that brings some joy to her life. And I also encouraged her to recite the compassion mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, with her family. So I think that sometimes we forget that we have this potential within us, and that we need to nurture our potential. Those of you who have children will understand this. We do so much for our children. We sacrifice so much for children, and we give them everything we can. We are concerned about where they're going to school, who their friends are, what they're doing, how they are now, and so on. And yet we forget that we have this Buddha potential within us. And so if we can right now begin to practice meditation, even just a few minutes every day, just a few minutes, and make a commitment. When I wake up in the morning, I'm just going to sit in bed, or I'm going to sit on the floor next to the bed and just breathe. Just breathe for just a few minutes before I leap out of bed. I'm going to do my best to keep that phone turned off, so I'm not going to look at the phone for the first 15 minutes of my day. I'm just going to sit and breathe. And that 5 minutes that we give ourselves is a generosity that pays forward into the day. And then maybe right before bedtime, we could take another 5 minutes and just sit, turn off the phone. You can even take the lights down a bit, and then just breathe for 5 minutes. And doing that is a way to bring some closure to the day. And so I'm thinking that self-care doesn't have to be complicated. It can be just as easy as eating well and making sure you get up and take breaks several times a day if you're busy working. And look out the window and allow your mind to rest with the sky. Because I remember a friend of mine, and I just put this on Facebook the other day, a friend of mine was going to do a retreat all by herself. And she was concerned about feeling lonely. And Jangön Kongtrul III was her spiritual advisor. And he was very wise. And he said, you can look up and you can see the sky. And he said, think of the sky as your friend. The sky will be your friend and will be with you always. And so that helped her to feel a little bit less alone, to recognize that the changing of the sky, which, as you know, everywhere, whether you live in California or you live in Ohio or wherever you are, the sky is continuously changing. There are clouds, there's rain, there's mist, there's sun, there's everything. And so the idea is that when we're close to nature and close to the sky and close to the rhythms of life that are in the natural world, that can often help. I was asked by one of the Buddhist magazines if I could share a few things that brought me happiness during the lockdown portion of our social distancing time. And I said the sun and the sky have really been my companions, because it's such a blessing just to watch it move across the sky and move across the through the windows of the house and so on. Because we have to find ways to stay encouraged. We have to find ways to stay healthy, both inside and out. And so that's a little bit about the Buddha nature. And if we do virtuous things now, if we recite mantra, if we practice meditation, these things will be kept by us in future, because the Buddha taught past lives and future lives. And so he said that we can plan for our future life now by doing meditation now and virtue now, and that this virtue we do now will be, I guess you could basically say, be part of our future. You can think of it this way. Parents save money for their child's education. So right now in this lifetime, we are going to save and accumulate virtue for our future lifetime, just as though we were putting our child through school. If we continue to, the word I'm thinking of is to accumulate a virtuous mind, to cultivate a virtuous state of mind. If we can cultivate a virtuous state of mind always, that virtuous state of mind will actually ripen as happiness and peacefulness in this life and in the future. So that's something worth thinking about. Now, I want to make sure there's time for questions, so I'm looking at the time. I have one more thing to say, and that is that those of you who are familiar with the teachings of our lineage and tradition will be familiar with the Tibetan Buddhist take on the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Now, the 4 foundations of mindfulness are taught in different ways in the Tibetan tradition. One is the traditional way of the sutras, but Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche also taught the 4 foundations of mindfulness in a different way. He taught them as the 4 thoughts that turn the mind towards spiritual life. And of all these 4, I'm only going to talk about one. And that is the first one of the 4 thoughts that turn the mind toward Dharma. And that's the preciousness of our human life. I know we've all been through a lot these last months. And we've known people who have died. We've known people who've gotten sick. We've known people who've lost their jobs. We've known people who have suffered emotionally and spiritually in this time. So we've all been through quite a lot. And yet here we are. And we still are able to communicate and to participate in life. And we still have the potential to awaken our minds and to practice meditation and to practice loving kindness. And so I think that's the first thing to think about, is that our life is precious, because no matter what we've been through, here we are. And we've learned and we've grown and we've connected with others and we've done our best to take care of ourselves and help others. We're still here. And that's precious. And also we've met the spiritual life. We've met spiritual people. We've practiced spirituality. We've practiced meditation. We've practiced mantra. We've practiced mind training. We've practiced compassion. And we've had this opportunity to do things with ourselves, with our minds, and with each other that are virtuous, good, and fulfilling. And so I think that this is the second thing to keep in mind about the preciousness of our life. Number one, we're still here. Number two, we have met spiritual life. And even though we may not practice it the way we want to, and as much as we want to, and in the way we want to, we're still practicing, and we're not giving up. So we're still here, and we've met the spiritual life. And I think that because of these two things, we can feel some encouragement. Because there's a saying that was from Khenpo Tsultrim Gyaltso, the great master who is still living. He's a great master who started teaching in the 20th century and is still alive today. He said, may all bad circumstances arise as our friends along the Dharma path. May all bad circumstances actually bring us benefit. May we realize emptiness, the complete freedom from elaborations, and coming to this knowledge and coming to this realization, may we benefit endless sentient beings. So what he's trying to say is that if we can look at the everyday life that we have as being full of potential for practice, then we can make excellent use of our human life, condition and cultivate virtue in our minds, and perhaps even make some progress on our Dharma path. So I think that's all I wanted to say for the moment. And I have seen something appear in chat, and I'm going to take a quick look at it to see if it's a question, because I'm letting people, I'm going to tell people that they can type questions in chat if that feels better, and then I'm going to read some questions in chat first. And then after reading some questions in chat, I'll have people unmute themselves and ask over audio. I hope that's okay. So let's see what this is. Okay, let's see. Always struggled with self-care. I am one who does try to take alone time seriously, spending time with hobbies, exercise, reading. But there is this realization that doing such, it is possible that doing some of these things is avoiding dealing with internal anxieties, pain, and loss. Can you speak to that? I understand. Yeah, I understand. I think that it's hard to be a well-supported individual. It takes a lot because so many people are relying on us. Our parents rely on us, our children rely on us, our coworkers rely on us. Everybody is relying on us, and it's hard to be relied upon by so many. And it makes it hard to show up for ourselves and to really be the people we need to be to ourselves. And I do agree that it is possible that that hobbies can become ways of not dealing with what's going on in one's life. But it could be that they are a necessary escape when other forms of support are not available. Because we may, recreational time is important. Even great masters like His Eminence, Tai Sita Rinpoche, said we're human, we're not Buddhas yet. We're human and we need relaxation and recreation. But then he said we have to do everything in a balanced way. And so I think that it's okay to have hobbies and it's okay to have recreation. I have it, everybody has it. But if you're beginning to think that it could be costing you something, then maybe it's good to sit down with somebody you trust, a friend or someone who you trust, and start talking about these things. I mean, it's not, I mean, there's a couple different ways to look at this. Some people feel guilty for taking time for themselves, and we don't need to feel guilty for taking time for ourselves. I don't think that's what we need to do. But if you're concerned that there might be issues beneath the surface that aren't being addressed, then it's probably going to, that probably means that it's time. It's time, and for you to talk to your friends and see if there are people among your friends who can be good listeners and help you put some of these things into perspective. I myself, because I'm, I guess essentially you would say a minister, it's not always easy for me to find friends I can talk to about things that are important. So a number of years ago, I started seeing a counselor, and that helped me a lot. And it's been more than 10 years, and I'm still conferring with her because, as she said, someone has to minister to the minister. And so I feel that being able to put, so we have to be able to have a third party who can help us take apart the various pieces and help us to know the difference between feeling guilty, improperly guilty for indulging in recreation, because it's not, we don't have to feel guilty for indulging in recreation. But if we think that it's becoming excessive or problematic, then it probably is time to talk to someone to get a read, what I would call a reality check on that. And so I don't know what else to say except being able to work through these things, anxieties, pain, and loss, I think you mentioned. Because like the Dharma practices, particularly the Lojong practice, the practice of the practice of relative bodhicitta, which is learning how to practice love and how to practice compassion, and ultimate bodhicitta, which is an understanding of mind. Being able to practice the two kinds of bodhicitta and to apply those bodhicittas to oneself, meaning to feel compassion for oneself, I think it's a very useful thing. I don't know if this is an answer to your question or not. If you have additional follow-up, feel free. Okay, thank you. And so if anybody else has questions, I don't see anything else going in chat. So let me double check and make sure there's, I'll get you in a second. Let me make sure there's nobody else who wants to type in chat. Nobody else in chat? Okay. So Charles, you said you had a question.
Yes, Lama Kathy, we've been very fortunate. Thank you for your talk today, and your insights. And behind you, we're fortunate because your picture is so large. I've been able to just dive into your shrine behind you. And I've never had anyone tell me about I think they're Dakini or Dharmapala offerings, the white kind of triangular, circular.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Do you mind? I mean, I'm taking this, just as one of these joyous things we can give ourselves, because I've never really been told about those. Do you mind speaking briefly to those objects on your shrine?
Yeah, I'm going to type something in chat. And hey, and by the way, I see that Betty's asked a question. I'll get to your question next, Betty, okay, as soon as I finish with this one. There is something, and this is actually spoken of in the book that we're doing in the book club. I'm doing a book club at Columbus KTC on the Great Path of Awakening, and this is actually spoken of in the Great Path of Awakening. I'll tell you which footnote, and you can look them up. But these the offerings that you're talking about are called Torma, Torma, and I just spelled it in chat. These sculptures they have several different things that they can symbolize. They can symbolize the offering of food. They can symbolize the actual Buddhas and Bodhisattvas themselves and stand in place of a statue. But mainly they're a form of food offering. And in the footnotes to the Great Path of Awakening, Ken MacLeod has written a really intelligent thing. In footnote number 68, make a note of it if you have the book, footnote number 68, I'm just going to read it. He says, the torma is a kind of offering or gift, and it's usually made out of flour, F-L-O-U-R, flour, and water and butter. And it symbolizes that which has power and capability. Power indicates the power of overcoming the deadening effect of ego fixation. And capability indicates the ability, cultivating the capability to overcome what are called the 4 obsessions. And and as we're human beings, we will all know what they're talking about when he lists these 4 things that human beings are obsessed with. Emotions, we're obsessed with our emotions. We're obsessed with mortality. We're obsessed with entertainment. And we're obsessed with our physical existence. In presenting torma to local spirits and so on, we're acknowledging the forces that are present in our environment and we're befriending them. But when we offer torma to dakinis and protectors, we're actually asking for them to help us along the Dharma path. So these are gifts that we give them. Now the permanent ones that are here on my shrine, these are, one of them is, the central one is a torma that stands in for a deity. It's the Karma Pakshi tormas. But on either side, one is Vajrayogini and the other is a Jawa Jamso, also known as Red Chenrezi. And those are actually food offerings specifically designed for specific Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. These are a couple of the practices I did in 3-year retreat. So I hope that helps.
Can we see the central one?
It's a little hard to see. Can you see?
There you go. That's what. Wonderful.
I made the central torma in this walking in the rain. I made it out of a plasticine clay called Sculpey. And it takes so much effort to form the shape that I just got it. It was raining outside and I needed some outdoor time. So I just walked in the rain and I formed the torma.
Wow. Okay, quick question. Recently in your Columbus KTC newsletter, you had a photo of porcelain torma. Are there porcelain ones that are?
No, they just those are made of plasticine or clay, and they're painted with high gloss, so they have appearance. They have a very shiny appearance. But they're not porcelain.
Are they available through the bookstore at KTD?
Not per se, but you can email me and I'll connect you with an artisan who makes them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there are artisans who will make them for you. So yeah, we can do that.
Thank you so much.
Very good. Now Betty has asked, how to become an enlightened being. So here's the thing. It's we have been an unenlightened being for a very long time, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. So it's going to take a little bit of work on our part to become enlightened. And so what I'm hoping is that by gradually doing, there's a couple things we can do. Number one, we can slowly become distant from our bad habits. We can slowly become distant from our bad habits on the one hand. On the other hand, we can slowly increase our positive habits. And these 2 things will help to loosen up and weaken the central problem that we have, which is fixation on self, fixation on ego. And so by reducing our bad habits and increasing our positive habits, we're going to weaken ego fixation. Then, through practicing compassion, we're going to increase our potential for love, compassion, and wisdom. And then finally, through practicing mantra and visualization and practicing the Mahamudra and the Dzogchen meditations, by practicing these deep meditations, that enlightenment will come gradually. But you have to have a teacher, and I know you have one, so your teacher will help you with all of the practices that you need to do to become enlightened. And I thank you for asking that question. So there's Wilma has a question.
Yes. Hi, Lama Kathy.
Yes.
I really appreciate what you said about the precious human life, the first thought, you know, the encouragement. Because for me, there's also a lot of fear in there. And I know that some teachers sort of emphasize that fear. And sometimes it has like the opposite effect for me. I mean, fear can obviously be very motivating for humans. But can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, I may need to ask a question first to be sure I understand what you mean.
Of course.
When you speak of fear, tell me a little bit about what type of fear you're talking about.
Well, like if you don't do certain things, if you don't practice properly, if you don't do certain practices, you will not have good fortune in your next life. You know, even if you're practicing a certain amount, or if you've done a certain amount, some teachers emphasize you must do this or you're going to be not in good shape.
Yeah, and here's what I tell people. I tell people that it is said, and my own teacher said this, that there are 84,000 teachings of Dharma. Now, it's not literally that there are 84,000. It just means there are endless amounts of Dharma to counteract the 84,000 kinds of mental affliction, right? So it means there is a teaching for every person. Okay, there is actually a Dharma teaching for every person. And I think that there are some people who benefit for the gentle approach, the encouraging approach, where they say, you know, take good care of your baby Buddha, take good care of yourself, saturate and steep your mind in virtue, and then that will bring fruition. But I have to say, I have actually met one or two of these people. There are some people who, if they don't have some kind of fear, they will not do what they need to do. They will not take care of themselves. They will not do what they have to do. So even though it's not us that need to hear the teachings that are fear producing, there's at least one in every group that really needs to hear it. And that's why they give it. They have to, because if they fail to give that teaching, then they will have missed that one person who would only respond to that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's why they give it. They have to give it, because if they don't give it, they're going to miss that person. And so what happens is, though, that the rest of us feel like, oh no, this is terrible, you know, because we're sensitive people and it's like too much for us. So here's the deal. My wonderful teacher, who just passed away last year at the age of 95, he used to say, he actually quoted, he didn't know he was quoting 12-step literature, but what he liked to say was, take what you need and leave the rest. So take the Dharma that works and leave the rest. If you don't need fear to motivate you, great. You know, just keep doing very, very good things, okay? And but please just, you know, I'd say don't judge the teachers too strong, because there is at least one person in every audience who needs to hear that. Yeah. So
that makes a lot of sense.
they may not be talking to you, but that person in the back. I hope that helps.
Yes. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
I'm seeing from the time that we are limited on time. So what I'd like to do, would this be all right if I answer, let's see, what do we get? Somebody asked about the offering bowls. Email me and I'll tell you where you can get them. Somebody asked about the offering bowls, and yeah, those, yeah, I can tell you all about them. So send me an email and I'll let you know. They're called Revere, R-E-V-E-R-E, because they're footed bowls, and you can buy them from and they're silver plated with plastic inserts, and these somebody gave these to me, so that's the only reason I have them, because they cost a little money. But we'll talk about that. You can send me an email and I'll give that to you. Is it okay to have expectations from others in the world around us? I think I know what you're saying. Is it fair for us to have expectations of others? And the answer is yes, in a relative, from a relative sense. For example, if we are parents, we need to expect our children to live moral lives and to obey and to, you know, and to not get into all kinds of trouble. We have to show good behavior for our children. We're required to have expectations of our children. It's required. I mean, we would not be responsible parents if we didn't have expectations of our children. And do we have expectations of the people we live with that they won't harm us? Yes, I think that's a fair expectation to have, that we should do our best to not be with people who cause us harm. I'll never forget one time a Lama said to a person who said, I have a friend, and this friend is in an abusive relationship, but they think that in order to benefit the person who's abusing them, they need to continue to be abused. Out of compassion, they have to do this. And the Lama said, no, they don't. It is never wrong to tell someone to stop hurting you. So he said, don't make a mistake about this. He said, he says, you can be compassionate, but don't be wrong-headed. So yeah, it's okay. But you also have to remember, so those are the kinds of expectations that I think it's all right to have. I think the incorrect kind of expectation is to expect them to read your mind and know what you want and give you what you want before you ask. You know what I'm saying? Those are the kinds of, right? You know, because I've known people who are like that. They expect everybody to read their mind, and that's really not a good expectation, because nobody's going to know what their mind is. So it is okay to have some kind of expectations, but it's like everything else in Buddhism, you know, all of Buddhism is like a middle path. It's like a middle path. We can do the extremes really well, like having no expectations. Having no expectations is or having lots of expectations, but now we have to come to the middle and have the right number of expectations and the right kind of expectations, and then handle the disappointment with grace. And this is, I think, what the teaching of Lojong is all about. I'm going to, there's a book that we're studying in Columbus right now called The Great Path of Awakening. And it's a great book. It's by Jamgon Khantrul. And it teaches us how to do compassion meditation and how to have these balanced expectations. So I hope that helps. I hope that helps. Let's see. Oh, hi to my guy from Toledo. Thanks for joining. Let's see. Thank you, Betty. Thank you, Betty. Let's see. I think that was it. Now I have time for one or two more questions that are from the people who are on audio.
Hi.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Anybody on audio have a question?
Yeah, it's Avishag. I put my hand up. I didn't know if you saw it.
No, unfortunately, sorry. Go for it.
So you were talking about how some people need fear, and I feel like there's like stages of what's useful. So for instance, the type of fear that was useful for me is that if I don't do it now, I'm going to lose track, I'm going to forget. So that was helpful.
Yeah.
But then at this point, it's time to let go and to open up into more heart practice. And so surrendering that, because it's more getting in the way. Like it got to the point where that type of motivation was now a hindrance.
Mm-hmm. I do understand that sometimes you're right. I remember when we were in 3-year retreat that Kemper Rinpoche would often remind us that we were actually sort of in a unique environment where we were being supported in every way. Someone was cooking for us, you know, and all of that sort of thing. And he said, you won't have this opportunity again. And so some of us used that opportunity as best we could. But I do confess to being lazy sometimes and not practicing as well as I could have. But I do agree that that we have to be balanced in everything. You know, we have to try to balance. And it's like I say, human beings do extremes really well, but we don't do middle very well. And that's why we have to rely on the teachings of the Buddha, because he knew how to do middle. You know, he knew how to do that. And so but I do understand that, and just having compassion for yourself is a good thing. So I'm not sure I addressed your question. Did I get close?
Yeah, I think it's also just the shift, the relating to, if I don't, then, like if I don't, maybe at one point, if I don't, then, and then there'll be just something that would be upsetting. So I would choose to focus on that. Where now is, if I don't practice like loving, compassionate state, then I won't open and grow. So now it's more
Okay, I get that.
versus threatening. You know, it's shifted.
Got it. Oh, that's right. Yeah, we're in different places. I see what you're saying. Yes, we ourselves are growing. And yeah, I totally get that. So thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
Other audio question.
Lama Kathy?
Yes, ma'am.
So one thing I've noticed during this pandemic is the news and a lot of talk about how there are 1,000 people who die every day.
Right.
And what I've noticed is it's almost become generic, because and I don't know if I'm saying this correctly, but the other day I went to type in and say, how many people are dying now every day? And it made me stop and think, and every day I try and remember that each one of these numbers and tallies of this pandemic are precious human lives. And sometimes I get lost in the, not so much mathematics, and I feel sad. Can you just talk a little about?
I think that thinking about them and knowing about them can make you sad, because they were somebody's loved one, and they leave people who are sad that they're gone. And I think you can also give them your prayers and blessings, because this way your relationship to them becomes very positive and is actually like a promise for the future. And it's one of those things that you can do. You can actually recite the Chenrezi mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, and imagine Chenrezi, the Bodhisattva of compassion, made of white light, above the head of all the people who have passed away, or just one large Chenrezi in space, you know, radiating white light on everyone who has passed away. And imagine that he is blessing them, removing their suffering, and bringing them to himself in Dewa Chen, the pure realm of Amitabha. And this will, I think, help a little bit toward the sadness, toward working with the sadness, because when we feel helpless, I think, is when we get sad. I mean, there are lots of things that make us sad. The thinking about their loved ones and the hole that's left by them passing away is one kind of sadness. But then feeling helpless, that there's nothing we can do to stop the deaths, and there's nothing we can do to help the people who have died. I think that helplessness is something we can slowly have an impact on by by making these kinds of prayers and aspirations. So I'm hoping this is helpful.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I see Betty is saying bye-bye. So thank you, Betty. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, she writes to me regularly, and it's like, I'm happy that she's here. I'm happy that she came. So I think that with the time, we should stop here. But what we can do is we can sit for a moment right now and mentally dedicate the goodness of this session and make the aspiration that the goodness of this session is shared by all sentient beings. We dedicate this merit to all sentient beings, wishing that they are free from suffering, that they come to happiness and then to Buddhahood. And so we will mentally dedicate our goodness with a moment of silence and think about dedicating our merit to everyone. Okay, thank you. And I will come back and see you again, and we'll do more questions. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you, Lama Kathy.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Lama
guys.
Kathy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, and
Bye.
we'll talk again. Om Mani
Yes,
Padme Hum.
please.
Take good care of your good selves. Okay.